The Middle East is a region on edge. Tensions are rising to levels not seen in decades. A complex web of rivalries and old wounds is stretching to its breaking point. At the center of this growing storm are two powerful nations, Israel and Iran. Their long-standing animosity has entered a new, more dangerous phase. What was once a cold conflict fought through shadows and proxies now threatens to erupt into open warfare. The world watches anxiously as these two regional powers inch closer to a direct confrontation, a conflict that would inevitably draw in other global players. The signs of this escalating conflict are everywhere. We see it in the fiery rhetoric from leaders in both Tehran and Jerusalem. We see it in the increasing frequency of covert operations and retaliatory strikes. Iran has steadily built a network of allied militias across the region, from Lebanon to Yemen. These groups, often called proxies, act on Iran's behalf, challenging Israel and its allies. Israel, in turn, has responded with a clear and determined military posture. It has carried out precise airstrikes against Iranian targets in Syria and elsewhere, signaling that it will not tolerate a hostile presence on its borders. This is not just a regional dispute, it is a global flashpoint. A direct war between Israel and Iran would have devastating consequences that would ripple across the entire world. It would disrupt global energy markets, sending oil prices soaring and threatening economic stability. It would create a massive humanitarian crisis, displacing millions of people and overwhelming international aid systems. Furthermore, it would risk pulling in major world powers, most notably the United States, which has deep and long-standing commitments in the region. The stakes are incredibly high, making this one of the most critical geopolitical challenges of our time. Understanding this conflict requires looking beyond the daily headlines. We must examine the deep historical roots of this rivalry. We need to understand the strategic calculations that drive decision-making in both capitals. It involves analyzing the military capabilities and the complex network of alliances that define the modern Middle East. The path to this dangerous moment has been long and complicated. By exploring how we arrived here, we can begin to grasp the immense challenges that lie ahead and the difficult choices facing the international community as it seeks to prevent a catastrophic war. The United States is a central actor in the Middle East. For over 70 years, the United States has maintained a unique and powerful relationship with Israel. This bond is often described as unbreakable and is built on shared strategic interests and democratic values. America's position is crucial in any potential conflict. The United States provides Israel with billions of dollars in military aid every year. It is a partnership that has made Israel one of the most formidable military powers in the world. This role places the United States directly in the middle of the escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. Therefore, any discussion of a potential war in the Middle East must begin with America's role. The U.S.-Israel relationship began after World War II. In 1948, Israel declared independence. The United States under President Truman moved quickly. America became the first country to grant de facto recognition to the new nation. This signaled the start of a partnership. Washington's initial support was cautious, navigating the complex geopolitics of the post-war Middle East. Other powers like France were Israel's primary military suppliers. U.S. policymakers saw the region through the prism of the Cold War. The 1956 Suez Crisis marked a key moment of tension. The United States under President Eisenhower strongly opposed the action. Some American strategists began to see Israel as a potential democratic bulwark, setting the stage for a dramatic shift in their relationship. 1967 was a turning point. The Six-Day War transformed the Middle East and the U.S.-Israel relationship. Israel's victory showcased its military prowess. The U.S. began to view Israel as a key pillar of its Middle East policy. This led to a massive increase in American military and financial aid, with the U.S. becoming Israel's primary arms supplier. The 1973 Yom Kippur War further solidified this bond. The Nixon administration launched Operation Nickel Grass, a massive airlift of military supplies. The Camp David Accords of 1978, mediated by President Jimmy Carter, led to a peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. By the end of the Cold War, the U.S.-Israel alliance was a cornerstone of American strategy in the Middle East. With the Soviet Union's collapse, the U.S.-Israel alliance adapted to new challenges like terrorism and nuclear proliferation. Iran emerged as a primary threat. This strengthened the strategic bond between the U.S. and Israel, marked by military and intelligence cooperation. U.S. security assistance helps Israel maintain its qualitative military edge, funding missile defense systems like Iron Dome. Intelligence sharing is deep, vital for national security. Regular joint military exercises ensure seamless operation in crises, deterring adversaries like Iran. This support is a bedrock of U.S. foreign policy. As tensions escalate, America's alliance with Israel links it inextricably to the Middle East's fate. Following the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran found itself isolated, surrounded by hostile states. Unable to compete militarily, Iran chose to export its revolutionary ideology. It built a network of allied groups and militias, the axis of resistance, becoming Iran's primary tool for projecting power. This strategy is based on asymmetric warfare, exploiting enemy vulnerabilities by arming and training non-state actors. These proxies allow Iran to wage war by other means, disrupting regional stability while maintaining plausible deniability. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, specifically the Quds Force, built these relationships, providing money, weapons, and training. Iran established a crescent of influence stretching from Lebanon to the Red Sea. This network acts as a deterrent, challenges American influence, and gives Tehran leverage in regional politics. This shadow war has become a defining feature of the modern Middle East conflict. Of all Iran's proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon stands out as the most powerful and influential. Born in the chaos of the Lebanese civil war, Hezbollah grew with Iran's IRGC support into a dominant political and military force. Today it operates as a state within a state, with its own social services, political party, and a military force rivaling national armies. Iran has armed Hezbollah with over 150,000 rockets and missiles, many precision-guided, capable of striking anywhere in Israel. This arsenal is a major deterrent, forcing Israel to weigh the risks of any military action against Iran or its interests. The U.S. designates Hezbollah as a terrorist organization and has imposed heavy sanctions to cut off its funding. Despite these efforts, Hezbollah's influence in Lebanon remains formidable. The group's presence on Israel's northern border is a constant source of anxiety for both Israeli and American strategists. A full-scale war would mean massive missile barrages on Israeli cities and devastating airstrikes on Lebanon. Such a conflict could quickly spiral, potentially drawing in Iran and the United States. This tense standoff makes the Israeli-Lebanese border one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the Middle East. The powder keg remains, waiting for a spark. The world watches, knowing the consequences could be catastrophic. For now, uneasy deterrence prevails. But the threat of escalation is ever present. In this shadow war, Hezbollah is Iran's sharpest sword, and its most volatile. Iran's proxy network stretches far beyond Lebanon, shaping conflicts across Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. In Yemen, Iranian support has transformed the Houthis into a formidable force, arming them with missiles and drones used against Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and international shipping. In Syria, Iran's intervention saved Bashar al-Assad's regime, deploying IRGC, Hezbollah, and Shia militias from across the region. This established a land bridge from Tehran to Beirut, enabling the flow of weapons and fighters to Israel's doorstep. In Iraq, Iran filled the post-2003 power vacuum by cultivating Shia militias, many now part of the Popular Mobilization Forces. These groups, loyal to Tehran, have targeted U.S. forces with rocket and drone attacks, pressuring America to withdraw. The presence of Iranian-backed militias creates a constant state of low-level conflict, destabilizing governments and threatening U.S. partners like Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Each theater, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, is a potential flashpoint for wider war. A single militia attack or Houthi strike could ignite a regional conflict, drawing in major powers. Iran's multi-front strategy keeps its adversaries off balance and the region on edge. The U.S. and its allies face a persistent, complex challenge. Efforts to contain these proxies have met with limited success. The risk of escalation is ever present. In the Middle East, proxy wars rarely stay contained. The next spark could come from anywhere. The stakes are high, and the margin for error is razor thin. This is the new normal in the shadow war for regional dominance. To counter Iran's proxies, the U.S. employs a mix of military force, economic pressure, and regional partnerships. Targeted airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria send a message. Attacks on Americans will not go unanswered. Economic sanctions aim to cripple Iran's ability to fund its proxy network, targeting the IRGC and affiliated groups. The U.S. also strengthens allies like Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan with military aid, intelligence, and advanced defensive systems. The goal: build a regional security architecture that can contain Iran's ambitions with less direct American intervention. But Iran's proxies are deeply rooted, driven by local interests as much as Tehran's orders. Eradicating them risks further instability. The cycle of strikes and counterstrikes carries constant risk of miscalculation. One wrong move could trigger the regional war everyone fears. America's playbook is robust, but the shadow conflict remains unpredictable. The stakes are high and the margin for error is slim. In this dangerous game, restraint and resolve are tested daily. The US walks a tightrope, seeking to deter Iran without igniting a wider war. The outcome remains uncertain. Overshadowing all proxy conflicts is the specter of a nuclear-armed Iran. Tehran insists its nuclear program is peaceful, but secret facilities and limited transparency fuel global suspicion. For Iran's leaders, nuclear capability is both a matter of pride and a shield against foreign intervention. Possessing the ability to build a bomb, even without assembling one, gives Iran immense leverage. The 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, imposed strict limits and inspections in exchange for sanctions relief. It rolled back Iran's program and bought time, but was always a fragile compromise. In 2018, the US withdrew from the deal and reimposed sanctions. Iran responded by ramping up enrichment and reducing cooperation. Now, Iran is closer than ever to nuclear weapons capability. The stakes have never been higher. The region teeters on the brink as Israel and the US weigh their options. Diplomacy, pressure, and the threat of force all hang in the balance. The nuclear question overshadows every move in the Middle East. The world holds its breath, hoping to avoid the unthinkable. The clock is ticking. For Israel, a nuclear Iran is an existential threat, one it will not tolerate. Israeli leaders have long vowed to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, citing Tehran's hostile rhetoric and support for anti-Israel proxies. This resolve underpins the Begin Doctrine: Israel will act preemptively, even unilaterally, to destroy enemy nuclear capabilities. Israel has already struck nuclear sites in Iraq and Syria, signaling its red line is real. Iran's nuclear sites are numerous, dispersed, and fortified, making a strike far more complex and risky. Any attack would likely trigger a massive, multi-front war with devastating consequences. The US shares Israel's goal but prefers diplomacy and sanctions, wary of being drawn into another Middle East conflict. This creates tension between allies, as timelines and strategies may not always align. The standoff is fraught with risk and uncertainty. Every intelligence update, every diplomatic move, is weighed against the specter of war. The stakes: survival for Israel, regional dominance for Iran. The world watches, hoping deterrence holds. The margin for error is vanishingly small. At the heart of the nuclear standoff is deterrence, a high-stakes game of signaling and brinkmanship. Iran relies on proxies, missiles, and the threat of nuclear capability to deter attacks from the US and Israel. For Israel, deterrence means military superiority, preemptive strikes, and its own ambiguous nuclear arsenal. The US projects power through its regional presence and public warnings that all options are on the table. Each side tries to convince the other that escalation would be catastrophic. But this balance is fragile. Miscalculation or misinterpretation could trigger a spiral no one wants. Cyber attacks, proxy strikes, or covert operations could be mistaken for acts of war. Communication is poor, trust non-existent. The peace is uneasy, built on fear and uncertainty. One mistake could shatter the balance. The region remains on a knife's edge. In this dangerous game, the cost of error is unthinkable. As the strategic calculus in the Middle East has grown more complex, technology has become a central theater of competition. For Israel and the United States, a critical focus has been on building a multi-layered missile defense shield in response to the growing threat posed by Iran's vast arsenal and proxies like Hezbollah. At the lowest tier is the famous Iron Dome, which has proven highly effective. Another battle is being waged in the digital realm. Cyber warfare has emerged as a key instrument of statecraft. Both the United States and Israel are believed to have some of the most advanced offensive cyber capabilities in the world, reportedly used to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. Iran, in turn, has invested heavily in developing its own cyber warfare capabilities and has been blamed for numerous cyber attacks. This constant, invisible conflict in cyberspace represents a new and unpredictable front in the long-running shadow war. The battlefields of the modern Middle East are being reshaped by drones. Once the domain of superpowers, drone technology is now in the hands of nations and non-state actors. For Iran and its proxies, drones have become a weapon of choice because they are cheap, difficult to detect, and can overwhelm defenses. We've seen Houthi rebels use Iranian-designed drones to attack Saudi Arabia and ships. Militias have used them to target United States military bases. In response, the United States and Israel have been forced to accelerate the development of counter-drone technologies, sparking a new arms race. This drone revolution has created a more volatile security environment, complicating deterrence and escalation. The next major conflict will be fought not just with tanks and planes, but also by swarms of intelligent machines. Beneath the visible military posturing, an equally critical war is being fought in the shadows, a relentless battle for information. In the 21st century Middle East, intelligence dominance is just as important as firepower. The side that can see, hear, and understand the battlefield better will have a decisive advantage. The United States and Israel have long relied on spy satellites and human intelligence to monitor activities. However, the intelligence landscape is changing with commercially available satellite imagery. Iran is actively working to improve its intelligence-gathering capabilities and investing heavily in cyber espionage. The next frontier in this intelligence war is artificial intelligence. AI and machine learning algorithms are now being developed to sift through data in real time. This increasing reliance on AI also introduces new vulnerabilities, and securing these systems is critical. The rivalry between the Israel-United States bloc and the Iranian-led axis of resistance is forging new partnerships, redrawing the geopolitical map. A significant development has been the growing cooperation between Israel and several Sunni Arab states like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. The shared threat perception of Iran has superseded old animosities, formalized by the Abraham Accords. This has opened the door for security cooperation and intelligence sharing. This emerging anti-Iran coalition presents a strategic challenge for Tehran, complicating its regional efforts. This strengthens America's position and its allies to contain Iranian influence. In response, Tehran has deepened its alliances with Russia and China, creating a counterbalancing bloc. The Middle East is becoming a key arena for great power competition, making the situation more complex. The road ahead is perilous, with multiple pathways that could lead the shadow war between Israel and Iran into a direct confrontation. The most dangerous scenario revolves around Iran's nuclear program. Israel might launch a large-scale preemptive military strike against Iran's nuclear facilities, guaranteeing a furious and widespread Iranian retaliation. Another potential trigger lies in the volatile proxy battlefield. Could unleash an escalatory spiral that neither side can control, and instead become the gateway to a direct war between the two regional superpowers. For instance, facing crippling economic sanctions and domestic unrest, Iran's leadership might decide that a limited, controlled conflict is a way to rally the population. Finally, the actions of external powers, particularly the United States, could inadvertently trigger a conflict. Could be the spark that ignites the entire region, plunging the Middle East into chaos. A direct military conflict between Israel and Iran would be a global catastrophe with immediate and severe consequences for the entire world. The first impact would be on the global economy through the disruption of energy markets. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway controlled by Iran, is the choke point through which roughly 1/5 of the world's daily oil consumption passes. This would cause a sudden and dramatic spike in global oil prices, potentially doubling or tripling them overnight and plunging the world into a deep economic recession. The humanitarian crisis resulting from such a war would be staggering in its scale, creating millions of refugees. The resulting instability would fuel extremism and create power vacuums. The security implications would extend far beyond the Middle East, leading to terrorist attacks. A conflict would severely strain American military resources, potentially emboldening other global rivals like China and Russia. A war initiated to prevent nuclear proliferation could ironically accelerate it. The global order, already under strain, could be pushed to the breaking point, ushering in a new era of global instability. The looming confrontation in the Middle East is a central arena for 21st century great power competition. The United States, Russia, and China are all deeply invested in the region. A major war would force them into a complex and dangerous geopolitical chess match. For the United States, its alliance with Israel means it would be almost impossible to remain on the sidelines. Russia has cultivated a strong strategic partnership with Tehran. China, as the world's largest importer of Middle Eastern oil, has an overriding interest in regional stability. A war would be a direct threat to its economic security. A major conflict could present an opportunity for China to position itself as a key mediator. This entanglement of great power interests makes the situation exceptionally volatile. A miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. As Israel and Iran edge closer to the brink, the entire world holds its breath. We stand at a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East, a region teetering on the precipice of a transformative conflict. The rivalry between Iran and Israel has reached a critical juncture. The steady escalation in military strikes and the advancement of Iran's nuclear program have created a tense political atmosphere. This is a clear and present danger to regional and global security. A modern war would be a multi-front, technologically advanced struggle. The destructive capacity available promises a level of devastation that would set the entire region back by decades. America's role in this unfolding drama is central. The world watches this dangerous standoff, understanding that the stakes extend far beyond the Middle East. A regional conflict could have worldwide repercussions. The choices made in the coming months could define the landscape of international security for a generation to come. The United States finds itself in a complex position in the Middle East. As a key ally, America cannot disengage. Its interests are deeply woven into the region. Isolationism isn't an option. The challenge is wielding influence to prevent war. Miscalculation poses an immediate danger. The U.S. must balance deterring aggression with open communication. This requires strategic foresight and a renewed diplomatic push. Sanctions and deterrence aren't enough. Re-engaging on nuclear issues and fostering regional dialogue are essential. The costs of war are catastrophic. America's role is at a crossroads, confrontation or a concerted effort for peace. The choice between war and peace has never been starker. Global stability depends on the path